Let's take a look at the story of the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8. It actually begins in verse 53 of chapter 7, the part that's begins the pericope of the adulteress. So before we get to the manuscript evidence, I'm going to try to make the case that this is not originally part of John's gospel. And most scholars, whether they're conservative or critical, um, would acknowledge this. Only a select few of the very, very conservative scholars would argue that this is originally part of John's gospel. This is not making the case that it is not historical, um, or that it wasn't originally part of some other gospel. I'm just arguing that it is not originally part of John's gospel. So again, before we get to the manuscript evidence, I just wanted to point out just a couple of stylistic things that jump out to a reader. If you're reading John in its original language, and you have been for years, certain things that might stand out. So there's been a lot of scholarly commentary on the stylistic differences and how it's more Lucan than Johannine. But for the layperson, I wouldn't expect them to find most of it even remotely compelling. But I did pick out two that I wanted to show you that you might find compelling, or it might add to the scales as you're weighing the evidence. And the first I want to show you is this word right here, orthru, that's translated early in the morning. Okay, this is the only time that this word occurs in John's gospel. And there's, like three other times that he begins a story or a setting with early in the morning. And he always uses a form of proi, whether it's proi or proias. He does not use orthru. Now, I'm sure that's some sort of logical fallacy to say, well, to use that as evidence that he didn't use it here um, is fallacious to argue that. But um, that's fine. You don't have to believe that. So this is another one that you probably won't find compelling, but scholars have pointed out that the setting, uh, this big picture being painted of Jesus sitting down and teaching, kathisa didasken. This is something that you would expect in the Synoptic Gospels, but it's not usually how John introduces the setting to a story. That Jesus, making mention that he sat down first and then he, began to teach. But again, that's not going to be a very compelling one. One that you might find compelling, of course, is the mention of the scribes. Now, you're used to reading the synoptics. You're used to hearing about the scribes and the Pharisees, the scribes and the Pharisees, the scribes and the Pharisees. Okay. And we have that here. We have the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes are mentioned actually over 20 times in the book of Matthew, about 20 times in the book of Mark, even it being a much shorter gospel than Matthew, about 20 times the scribes are mentioned. Gospel of Luke, about 20 times, and even in the book of Acts, about 5 times. Apart from this occurrence of the scribes here in this pericope that's in question, the Gospel of John mentions the scribes 0 times. Now, that's compelling to me. That is a powerful argument to question this. So let's see what the manuscript evidence might point to. We're going to look at 4 manuscripts. We're going to look at Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus, P66, and P75. So let's start with Codex Sinaiticus, and we're just going to start in verse 52 of chapter 7. See if I can find my place here. Okay, apokrythisan. Apokrythisan ke iponavto. Mi kesu ectis Galileasi. Okay. And they answered, and they said to him, surely you're not also from Galilee. They introduced the question with me, so they're expecting a negative reply. Mi kesu ectis Galileasi. Eravnison, ke ide, oti, prophitis ek tis Galileas uk egirete. Search and see that a prophet does not come from Galilee or does not come out of Galilee. A prophet. It's not articular in this manuscript. It's a prophet. Palin, palin unavtius elalisin o Isus, legon ego tophos imi, tu cosmo. I like how the article is up here. I didn't know whether to read it or not. Ego tophos imi tu cosmo. I also like the word order there. Ego tophos imi tu cosmo instead of ego imi tophos tu cosmo, which is what would be, I guess, more expected. That ego imi that we find so much in John. Ego to phos imi tu cosmo. So if you're following along, you can see that we have completely skipped the pericope in question. So it's totally absent. It flows smoothly from the end of verse 52 of chapter 7 to the beginning of verse 12 in chapter 8 without missing a beat. Okay, now let's go to Codex Vaticanus. Apokrythison, and they answered, okay, Apokrythison ke ipanavto, and they answered and said to him, Mi kes you ectis Galileasi? Surely you ain't from Galilee also. Okay. Erevnison. Now I say Erevnison. This has a different spelling than Codex Sinaiticus. Codex Sinaiticus had Eravnison, which what looks like was originally here, and it's hard to tell. It looks like it may have been scraped because it's not so dark, and then the epsilon replaces the alpha. So Erevnison, but it means the same thing. It means search or examine. Erevnison ke ide, search and see. Oti ectis Galileas prophitis uk egirete. Search and see that out of Galilee a prophet does not come up. Again, this is anarthrous. It's not articular. It's just a prophet. A prophet in general, not the prophet. Okay, and then palin un avtis elalisen Isus. Again, this time Isus is anarthrous, but it is nomina sacra, as it usually is. Elalisen Isus elegon egoi mitophos tu cosmo. Now, again, there's that word order we would expect. Egoi mitophos tu cosmo. I'm the light of the world. But again, where's the story of the adulteress? We have jumped from 752 directly to 812. Now, if you're looking at the date of this manuscript, this uncial part of the text we're looking at dates to around the year 300. Okay, the reason you see this later dating of 1499 is because of the minuscule portion of the text, which is not on this page that we're looking at. Okay, so we're looking at the older part, not the minuscule writing. We're looking at the uncial, the majuscule. Okay. Same for Codex Sinaiticus. It dates to about the same. I've heard dates as early as 300 to as late as 350 or so. So in that time period, both of these. Now we're going to go back a little older. We're pushing possibly as early as 250 now with P66. Okay. So again, we're getting into some really old witnesses here. Okay. Apokrythisan ke ipanavto. Mi kesu ectis Galileasi. Okay, so again, this is showing word for word matches with our other witnesses. And they answered and said to him, surely you're not also from Galilee. And now look at the spelling here. Here we have the original epsilon. So we saw the alpha in Codex Sinaiticus. Now this is just a side note. We saw the alpha in Codex Sinaiticus eravnison, which is the spelling you'll see in your printed Greek text. And then we saw in Codex Vaticanus how the alpha was scratched out and they replaced it with an epsilon. And now we're seeing this epsilon is the original spelling, erev. Now this is a ypsilon. I know it kind of looks like a tav, but it is a ypsilon. Okay, erev. And we're on the recto. Let's go to the verso. Okay, erev nison. So search, que ide, and see. Oti ectis Galileas, that out of Galilee, o prophetis uk egirete, that the prophet, now it's articular, the prophet uk egirete, does not come up, does not come out of, does not come up out of. Palin unaftius elalisin oisus, articular Jesus, nomina secra, as always, virtually always. Elalisin Isus legon ego emitophos tu cosmo. I am the light of the world. So again, then to them he was speaking, Jesus saying, I am the light of the world. Again, we have skipped right over the entire pericope of the adulteress. Well, what else have we got? Have we got any others? Yes, we got P75. This one is has some, I guess you would call them lacunae. A major lacuna here where, it would be nice, at least for today when examining, is to have the complete text. This one's hard to read. I'll be honest with you. It's hard to read. It's hard to follow. But I can see here, ek tis Galileas. Okay. And I can see here, egirete. Then I can see what would be palin. And I can see the nomina secra, Isus, legon. And then there's epsilon where he would say, ego emi tophos to cosmo. Okay, let's just skip down here to where it's legible again, and then we'll see where we're at, and then we'll see if we'd have enough room to fit those, those 12 verses. Okay, I can see right here, I Pharisei, okay, ipon un afto. And they said to him, I Pharisei, su periseavtu martyris. You testify, you bear witness concerning yourself. And then the Pharisees said to him, you are bearing witness concerning yourself. Periseavtu martyris. E martyriasu uk estin alitis. Your testimony is not true, is what they're telling him. Now, we've jumped right to verse 13 of chapter 8 here. We left right here in chapter 7, verse 52. Now, clearly, we have some missing, but anybody with half a brain knows we're not missing all that. So it's safe to say that none of the pericope of the adulteress was in this passage here. And so there are 4. Okay, again, look how early this manuscript dates to. Possibly the year 200. I mean, how far back? We don't have the originals, unfortunately. So this is all we can do. Just go back and see what's there. And it's just not there. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. It's not there. And you weigh that in addition to, some of these, minor stylistic differences of this pericope versus the gospel as a whole. And to me, it seems that the evidence is very strong that the story of the woman caught in adultery is not original to John's gospel.